This is Joseph Drust, and welcome back to another episode of Ask ZBrush. So we had a question sent in asking, can you show how to make a tire using ZModeler? So this question isn't quite your normal Ask ZBrush question, but since it's a pretty fast process, I'm going to go ahead and just do a quick demo here on how to make a tire using the ZModeler brush inside of ZBrush here. So to start off, I just have ZBrush loaded up, and I have a Polymesh 3D star here in the viewport. And I'm going to navigate over to the tool palette over here, and I'm going to select this cylinder 3D object. Now, the cylinder 3D object is what I'm going to use to base my initial start of the tire off. So I turn the floor grid on here. I'm going to navigate to the initialize panel here. I'm going to do a line to X, so my tire is going like so inside of ZBrush. I'm going to make sure I have my horizontal divide set to 32. Usually end up using numbers that are divisible by 8. So 8, 16, 32. That's usually the numbers I use for cylindrical objects. And I'm going to turn my V divide all the way down to the lowest setting, which is 3. And then I'm going to do an inner radius here. Just get a start of a tire here. So I'm just going to change this a little bit just to get me something like this. So this is going to be my starter shape for my tire creation. So after I'm happy with this, I'm going to come over here to the top of the tool palette here, and I'm just going to click Make Polymesh 3D, and now I have my tire like so. So there are a few things I'm going to use when creating this tire. One thing I'm going to end up using a lot is under the Geometry tab here and Modify Topology. There's this Mirror and Weld option. So I'm just going to go ahead and Mirror and Weld an X here, and now I have a nice center line on my tire here. Now, the next thing I want to do is switch to the ZModeler brush. So I'm going to hit B on my keyboard, and I'm going to hit Z, and then I'm going to locate the ZModeler brush, or press M. And now I have the ZModeler brush selected. So modeling a tire inside of ZBrush here with the ZModeler brush, the real only trick to doing it is turning on symmetry. So if I come up to the Transform tab here, I'm going to activate symmetry, and I'm going to have it turned on like so, and then I'm going to click this radial symmetry option here, and I'm going to set this to 16. So I want it to be half roughly of the segments that are going all around the tire. So since I set this to 32 in the initialize tab, I'm going to set it to 16 here. And now if you can see, when I hover across my model like so, I'm going to be able to Q mesh using this radial symmetry. So this is going to allow me to come through and generate this tire really quick just using the ZModeler brush. So you can see I'm already coming through, and there we go. We got like even just a start tread, so I can make a paddle boat really quick here. So that's pretty much the only real trick to making a tire with the ZModeler brush. Just make sure you have radial symmetry on. So the next processes are all pretty standard. I'm going to toggle a lot of the symmetry on and off with X here on my keyboard. And I'm just going to use some of the basic functions here. So the main functions I'm going to use is this insert edge loop, which is a default setting for ZModeler brush. And I'm just going to come through and establish some edge loops here. And you'll notice I'm only working on one side of the tire. So I'm working on the left side of the tire here. So at any time, if I want it to go to the other side, just come over here and click Mirror and Weld, and it's going to give me the same on the other side. So this allows me the functionality of using that radial symmetry and also using Mirror and Weld to get it happen to the other side of the mesh there. So I'm just cutting in some loops, and then I'm going to hold Alt with this insert edge loop to remove some loops. And this is going to start giving me that smooth tire shape in some of these areas. So where like the wheel well would be through here. And I'm just coming through and just establishing some edges. So nothing too crazy. You can also come through and apply new polygroups to these areas, which is handy when using the Q mesh brush. So I'm going to hover over an edge here, press spacebar, change this to polygroup. And now I come through and give different polygroups to these different areas. And this is going to allow me to now come through with that Q mesh brush there and use options like polygroup all. And this is going to allow me to use that Q mesh area there and just affect the entire polygroup. So I'm just going to come through and just keep using this insert single edge loop and these options here to just add some different elements here. So nothing too crazy. So new polygroup, Q meshing it out. Now you can see I'm starting to get this little shape of some sort of wheel here. And then add some stuff here. And then maybe cut some insert edges through here. So after you have your kind of basis of your tire here, so something that's like so, we now can start talking about the tread. So for the tread option, what I'm going to do for this, I'm going to turn back on that radial symmetry. I'm going to go back into the Q mesh, change my target back to a single poly, And I'm just going to pull up some tread here. So there we got some tread like so, and then maybe pull it up here as well. So I have this kind of tread pattern here. Now, if I mirror this over the other side, I'm going to end up with a tire that looks like this, but this probably isn't what you want. So what I am going to do is I'm going to grab part of the model here and mask it, and then I'm going to apply a rotation modifier in the deformation panel, which is going to give me that nice twist. So I'm going to come through and grab just the middle radius here first. We'll show you this example. And then I'm going to flip the mask by just holding Control and clicking off the model. Now I'm going to go to the deformation panel here and go to the rotate here. I'm going to change this to X. And now I'm going to rotate. And now you can see I'm getting that kind of tire effect there like so. So I can change my masking and mask just that middle portion and then do that rotating again. And now you can see I'm getting this kind of tread pattern. I can now take the model and using the move transpose line, hit the white circle to center it to my mesh, hold shift to drag it out to the side here. And then I'm going to grab the inner circle on the extent and then hold shift and now shrink that tire in like so. So now I have something like this, right? So interesting little things you can do with the ZModeler brush and just this rotation to get a different tire effect there. So my intersection of my tire probably needs to bulge out a little bit too. So I'm going to mask that again, and I'm going to come over here to the deformation and I'm just going to adjust the size, which is now going to give me a bulge like that. And I can mask these lines and do the same thing and just start getting my tire to look a little round like so. Now, one fun thing about this using the ZModeler brush is that anytime you can come to the geometry tab here and go to crease, and I'm going to set this to say 45 and crease, and then I'm going to go to the dynamic subdivision and turn that on. And now you're going to get a dynamic preview of your tire here. So you'll see I have some edge pinching with the smooth subdivisions here, so I need to add some creasing there. So back to the ZModeler brush, hovering over an edge, set my target to edge loop complete. And then I come through and just tag those edges there. I'm just going to straighten those out. And so now I have this kind of smooth tire effect. Now, since I still have that radial symmetry option too, and I have it set to half of my diameter, I can quickly come through and just tag different edges as well really fast and get those to retain those creasing. That's going to give me a nice tire effect. Now, once you have this kind of set up too, at any time you can also come in and just modify this with the Q mesh action too. If I want to make round holes or maybe even like start Q meshing this stuff here. And now I'm getting a little different kind of happy accident tire stuff going on here. Now I got some cool tread patterns like so. And bring these up and you come through and say insert some edge loops in here. And then even Q mesh some of these guys out. So you can start seeing how you can just start playing with the ZModeler brush to get different tread patterns on your mesh there. So interesting little stuff there. Then for the wheel well, you can just do the same thing. So just coming across polys and dragging them out. And I can start getting different inner radius stuff going on like so. Add more edge loops in here. Maybe do some tapering on these guys. Taper that and then delete that edge. And then add another edge loop through here and maybe pull these out. So using the Q mesh action and holding shift, it's going to give me a move action instead of a Q mesh action. And so now you see I'm starting to get a more interesting tire shape on my model here. I can control the creasing as well on these parts here. So turning that dynamic on, hovering over that edge again, and then going to crease and doing edge on that. Increase these guys quick and retain these different values here. And using that radial symmetry helps speed up this process quite a bit for just tagging edges and creasing stuff. So now I have a tire tread like so, smooth some of these out. So it's mostly just playing with the different options inside of the ZModeler brush and then using that radial symmetry. And that's going to allow you to generate some tire effects here. So another thing, if you want offset tread, this will be the last thing for this here. Let's undo this. And now I'm going to hide part of my model here. So I'm just going to hide that part there. And then maybe, actually we'll just hide this part too. And now I'm going to go to modify topology. I'm just going to delete hidden. So I'm only left with half of this tire here. Now I'm going to go to the mirror and weld and simply click mirror and weld, which is going to now generate this effect. So I have two halves of the tire and they're separated in the middle. So now I have two halves and I want to do a kind of a cross tread. So a tread that goes in diagonal or like bridges between the two. So I'm simply just going to mask one of these sections out here, go back to that deformation panel here, go to this rotate option here, and now I want to rotate this model in a degree where this side here will be connected to this side now. So to do this, I know that I have 32 segments going all the way across. And I know if I take 360 and divide that by 32, I get 11.25. So I'm going to come to the rotate option here and just type in 11.25 and hit enter. So now I have rotated half the model here in 11.25 degrees. So now I'm going to clear my mask here. And now the next thing I want to do is I want to bridge some polys through here. So with that radial symmetry on, I'm going to hover over an edge, go to bridge, and make sure I have the target of edges set. I'm going to simply click and click. And I'm just bridging the parts that are sticking out here, like so. So I end up with something like this. And now I can hover over this open edge here, and go back to bridge, now do 2 holes. And now I can select one of these holes, and then select the other hole, and it's going to bridge across like so. And I can do the same thing for this inner area here. So just bridging those 2 sides like so. And now I have something like this. So now that I have this kind of set up like so, I'm going to shrink my tire again. So dragging out transpose line, hitting the white circle to make sure it goes in the middle, and then dragging it in like so. I'm going to go back to the ZModeler brush, hover over one of these edges, and go back to insert. And I'm just going to delete some of these guys here. And now I'm going to turn back on that radial symmetry and just drag these out. And you can see now I'm getting this cross tire pattern here. So now I have this kind of effect going on my mesh here. Now I can apply that same thing again where I mask out part of that intersection there. Go to this rotate and rotate this around like so. Then mask out the other edges. Do that same rotate again. So now I have a tread pattern like this. So all sorts of things you can do with just the ZModeler brush, a cylinder, using this rotate option in deformation and radial symmetry. So that's basically the process I use to model tires inside of ZBrush here. So nothing too crazy, just a lot of symmetry. So I hope that helps. If you have any other additional questions related to ZBrush pipelines or processes, please use the hashtag AskZBrush on Twitter. Happy ZBrushing.